Hello, everyone, and most welcome to 1633 of the Heidegger series. And we are continuing this project with each time two different texts. It is most rewarding. And we will today continue with the church side of the thing, the apocalyptic number 616, and the Donatist Church by Jesse Hoover of Baylor University. And we are currently at page 716, 2 pages up. Let's see here. Exactly. Very good. Yes, and we ended at page 716, the second paragraph, and we have just been talking about the Nero Redivivus legend, the Nero Redivivus legend. And here is a quote that we will begin with, starting with now. Perfect. You could make it a little bit bigger. Now, there are 28 years between the passion of the Lord and that of the apostles Peter and Paul. That is, their passion under the consuls Nero and Piso. For this was the first persecution under Nero, which will occur under Enoch and Elijah. This is the same Nero whose name John called 616 in the Apocalypse. Here wisdom is overthrown. Because the name of him who's called Antichrist may be calculated through numbers 1, 13, 19, 9, 3, 17, 8, 9, 18, 19, 20, 18. Added together, their number is 154. 4 times this number is 616. Which is the name of Antichrist. The author of Liber Genealogus, in other words, assumes, much like many modern writers, that Nero is the original referent of John's apocalyptic number. That number is 616, and its connection with Nero is rather straightforward. The numbers, the whole series once more, are simply the Latin geometric values of the name Antichristus. Added together, they total 154. If one multiplies this sum by the number of letters in Nero's name, the number 616 is revealed. When compared with the Tychonian tradition, the anonymous author's geometric calculations can seem somewhat simplistic. They are, however, representative of a wider trend towards the Nero Redivivus legend in the late 4th and early 5th centuries, as can be seen in the writings of Sulpicius Severus. and the enigmatic poet Commodian, as well as the more skeptical Augustine. Two further recensions of the Liber Genealogus were produced, both of which retain the original compiler's 616 calculation. In 1438, an anonymous editor, writing under the threat of a renewed Vandal invasion, updated the St. Gall edition, correcting a number of perceived errors and adding extract from several other texts to flesh it out. This edition is called Florence, after the city where the first two copies of this recension were discovered. Given his retention of Cecilian's condemnation and additional comments supporting a separatist ecclesiology, the unnamed writer was almost certainly Donatist. The revised version of the Liber Genealogus adds several clarifying elements to the 616 passage, including explicitly writing out the letters that make up Antichrist alongside the numerical equivalents, and specifying that the number is to be multiplied by 4 according to the 4 letters of Nero's name. The Florence editor is aware, however, that 616 has a rival. Quote, but this appears to disagree with the usual number that has been calculated according to what other teachers have written about the number of the beast. For this is what the holy bishop Victorinus says. His number, says the Holy Spirit, is the name of a human, and the number of his name is 666. That is Antichrist. The Florence editor clearly suspects that something's wrong with a simple 616 calculation proposed by his predecessor. We have added these things from the words of the distinguished Bishop Victorinus and others. He tells us, because the total of the calculations given above for the name of Nero added together did not tally with the number of the beast. Nevertheless, he is unwilling to totally abandon the Nero Redivivus legend. Arguing instead that Antichrist itself will come in the spirit of Nero, and Tsar is said to be the city in the west where he remains imprisoned up until now. The final revision of the Liber Genealogus, known as Luca, after the location of the only known surviving manuscript was first completed in 455 AD, then updated in 463. It is aware of both previous recensions, though it tends to incorporate Florence only in places where the St. Gall is obviously incorrect. Unlike the previous two recensions, Luca does not appear to have been edited by a Donatist writer. It is noteworthy, however, that despite his knowledge and partial incorporation of the Florence recension in the passage that contains the apocalyptic number, the Luca editor ultimately declines to include his predecessor's speculations over 666. Instead, he reverts to the St. Gall edition's simple geometric calculation. Maybe we can have the text a bit up. The Luca recension's updated edition of 463, however, appears to be the final witness to this particular exegetical trajectory while the Liber Genealogus is known to have influenced several graphical representations of the biblical genealogies from Visigothic Spain, and several sections were incorporated into the Inteximus 7th century Visigothic commentary on Genesis, the apocalyptic passage containing the 616 reference was not found, was not among them. A new witness to 616. So far, this article has endeavored to collate and briefly analyze all known reference to the variant number 616 within the Latin tradition. It is certainly possible that more exist. Indeed, in this section, a potential new witness will be introduced. What is striking about these texts, however, that with the exception of the Universitätsbibliothek Düsseldorf, MSB3, whose basis for incorporating the number 616 is uncertain. They are all united by one thing: their common dependence on exegetical writings originating within the Donatist communion. Two sources, Tychonius Expositio Apocalypseus and the Liber Genealogus, account for everything else on record within the Latin tradition. And indeed, all exegetical reference to 616 in any language outside of Irenaeus' hostile testimony in the 2nd century. Remarkably, neither Donatist source appears to be dependent on the other, given their radically divergent interpretation of the apocalyptic number. The significance of this fact will be addressed shortly. However, before doing so, a new contribution to the status questionis must be introduced. Crucial as Tychonius and the Liber Genealogus are to the argument of this article, they are not in fact the only witnesses to the 616 reading present within the Donatist exegetical tradition. A probable third witness to the variant number can be found within the Daniel series of the Capitula set associated with the Donatist communion. Capitula were the section divisions that served to orient readers of the text in late antiquity and the early medieval era. With accompanying series of title. The first known capitula sets in Latin date from the early 3rd century. Lists of these capitula and their titles were commonly placed immediately between the introductory prologue and the biblical text. During the late antique and early medieval eras, many such capitula lists jockeyed for preeminence, and among them were at least 5 capitula series that are known to have originated within the Donatist communion. One covers the New Testament book of Acts and is attested in 3 manuscripts, while the other 4 likely derived from a single capitula set and present in whole or in part, in over 232 manuscripts, cover the major prophets Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, on the basis of their shared style and grammar. These 4 Capitula series are probably the work of one writer. These 4 Capitula sets for the major prophets were apparently quite popular in the late antique and early medieval world. Eighteen of the 23 known manuscripts, which include Capitula for Daniel, for instance, utilized the Donatist series or a derivative thereof. Indeed, the very presence of a derivative series for the major prophets, which noticeably attempts to minimize the more conspicuously Donatist aspects of the original, indicates the pervasive influence of these Capitula lists, despite being at least nominally aware of their origin. Catholic writers choose to use them anyway. Much like Tychonius' Expositio Apocalypseos, their immediate utility appears to have outweigh their heretical origin. The capitulum, which is particularly relevant to this article, belongs to the Daniel Capitula series and covers the passage in Daniel 7:1-8, in which Daniel has a vision of 4 beasts coming out of the sea, a lion, a bear, a leopard, and an undescribable 10-horned fourth beast. In Revelation 13, this 10-horned beast, which now appears like a leopard, its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. Is reimagined as the one whom later Christian writers would call the Antichrist. It is this beast whose number, according to Revelation 13:18, is either 666 or 616. Daniel Capitulum 16, which covers this vision sequence, reads, Ubi vidit Daniel quatuor bestias in figura regum. 154 kings. The allusion to 154 kings is oddly specific. The number 154 does not appear in Daniel 7:1-8, nor indeed anywhere else in the text of Daniel. It is also unattested among other biblical or apocryphal books, nor does there seem to be any late antique witness, ecclesial or secular, who singles out the number for special attention. Unsurprisingly, it appears that many of the later editors of the Capitula series did not quite know what to make of this number. Of the 15 manuscripts that include its list in its original form, 5 modify the reference to 154 into something more intelligible. The situation is even more dire. Among the derived series, here, only one of the 4 witnesses preserves the original numbering. So, why the allusion to 154 kings? Once again, it appears that the number was intended to invoke the identity of the apocalyptic beast on the basis of the number 616. The 4 beasts of Daniel 7, 1-8 are inextricably tied to the final beast that haunts the pages of Revelation 13 by linking them with 154 kings. The author of the Capitulum appears to be appealing to the same sort of apocalyptic calculation already encountered in the Liber Genealogus. There, the anonymous author multiplied 154, the geometric value of the Latin word Antichristus, by 4, the number of the letters in Nero's name. In order to link Antichrist to a revived Nero figure. In Daniel chapter 16, the same figures are encountered under altered guise. 154 kings and 4 beasts. But the implied extrapolation seems clear enough. The 4 beasts, which stand for 154 kings, ought to be equated with the final beast figure of Revelation 18, not merely on the basis of shared thematic infinities, but also because they share this number, 154 times 4 equals 616. The authors, 154 kings, are difficult to identify. In other words, because they have no literal referent. Instead, they likely stand for all human kings who embody even now the hidden workings of Antichrist. So I will have a look-see here on rewarding quotes. Well, the first page we read, 716. The last paragraph, there's just a hint. The zest of it, that Nero is the original referent of John's apocalyptic number. And then we have a series of numbers which are the geometric values of the name Antichristos. You might remember, which is important here, that there are 3 different gematria: triangle, square, and rectangle. We choose the one that fits. In this case, we get 154. Do you remember this? Which multiplied by 4 happens to be the number of letters in Nero's name. That is 4. And then we have to make a little leap, quantum leap, or a large leap. We are into the subchapter, a new witness to 616. And there we find on page 720. And beginning with indeed after the reference 41, there 41. Indeed, the very presence of a, and this comes again, the derivative series of the major prophets, which noticeably attempts to minimize the more conspicuously Donatist aspects of the original, indicates the pervasive influence of these capitulalists, despite being at least nominally aware of their origin. Catholic writers choose to use them anyway. And here is a comparison, as something we mentioned before. Much like Tychonius' Expositio Apocalypseos, their immediate utility outweigh their heretical origin. So we choose by will, and what gematria we choose is also largely by will, by intention. We have different gematria to choose of. We choose the one that gives the number 154. So we have something random established, and we go to different texts. This is development. And at the very end of the same page, unsurprisingly, it appears that many of the later editors of the Capitula series did not quite know what to make of this number. Of the 50 manuscripts that included the list in its original form, 5 modify the reference to 154 into something more intelligible. Let's change it into something we can understand. I would call that subject reaches out to object. An interesting quantum mechanical take on this. We go further down, and now I'm just going to recant in this paragraph, the same page. The geometric value of the Latin word Antichristus by 4, the number of the letters in Nero's name, in order to link Antichrist to revived Nero figure. In Daniel, we have an altered guise, it's not the same, 154 kings and 4 beasts. Remember, it was a bear, tiger, and some unnameable beast. The 4 beasts times the 154 kings will give the same number. The 2 last says the penultimate sentence and the ultimate sentence on that same paragraph. The author's 154 kings are difficult to identify, in other words, because they have no literal referent. Instead, the author adds here, happenstancely, they likely stand for all human kings who embody even now the hidden workings of Antichrist. So as you know before, this random choice of anything that fits what you want to explain is highly quantum mechanical. You need the in factor, preferably intentional, random, to make into reality. And this is exactly what is happening. You get rewarded by finding reference in the Bible, in the texts, which is synchronicity and entanglement. The important aspects is the randomness. Your want, that makes it an objective fact. And of course, you can contrast that to the old Aristotelian logocentric view, where something is made objective by eradicating choice, or, as I mentioned here, fitting descriptions, or want, practicality, ignoring Donatists' origin, and so forth. This makes the search for the number much more credible, much more into reality. It collapses the superposition in a scientific way. This is the way to go about to reveal the hidden workings of Antichrist. To repeat the last sentence of what we read now. This is of course also a variety of cause and effect, where there is no clear difference between cause and effect in the classical model. Here we choose first, and therefore we get a connection where cause and effect effectively are reversible but still separable. Cause and effect, I choose the number. From the gematria I choose will also make it reversibly out there, so to speak, objective. One of the gems of gematria you can choose yourself, and the choice is important. Oddly similar to the mathematics of quantum mechanics. These things, of course, follow quantum mechanics. Kalle, maybe some comments. He's not available through speaking voice. He has to communicate through chat. I apologize. Yet how these Donatist writers arrive at 616 is not so random. So it is 154 multiplied by 4. The number 4 has 2 arguments in favor of it. The name Nero having 4 letters. The 4 beasts of Daniel and the book of Revelation. Yes, yes, of course. It is still classical, but the randomness is of course necessary for it to be true and objective. There are, I would say, the 2 takes on the whole thing. No, I wouldn't say it's too far-fetched. Well, I do agree that it's true, but the far-fetchedness is important for it to become objective, for the truth value in quantum mechanics. The very choices of the machine, for instance, that decide wave or particle needs to be absolutely random. It, so to speak, needs to be far-fetched, if you like. And then you will have afterwards a classical world with its proofs, with its arguments as well. So we have, so to speak, both. I do agree, but there is another side to it. Can also compare that to the, well, let's say the verso and the recto of a piece of paper. Classical cause and effect explanation on one side, and, so to speak, a completely random side on the other one. Yes, we definitely, Kalle just wrote, we probably need both the randomness and the logical at the same time. Very good. It needs to be simultaneous. And quantum mechanics, they both come at the very same time. And therefore, of course, it's very hard to tell them apart. It seems that the cause and effect has always been there, so to speak, out there, but they come into existence simultaneously. Give us a sec here. What to make of this number of the 15 manuscripts that include the list in its original form? 5 modify the reference into something more intelligible. Yes, and that's another factor, the intelligibility, understandable, which is very important. Very good. Yes, I commented earlier, subject reaches into the objective. In quantum mechanics, there is not a passive reception of something original out there. The subject reaching out is the randomness, my intention, my want, desire, if you like. It's a bit broad now. So we go out to reach the outsideness. Maybe it's better to call it outsideness than objective. And in this meeting, which is like the coast of Norway, the two sides, the coast and the water, the fjords, simultaneously make at the very same moment what is true, which is in between. Randomness becomes objective and vice versa. Very good. It's exactly my point. Well, in this context, we can mention the Wheeler-de Witt equation, and where cause and effect comes, yeah, the past is rewritten. And you can also say, in conclusion, with Wheeler-de Witt equation, cause and effect is a posteriori, after. It doesn't mean that it is less, but it is strictly after. This is also called, as you write here, where the past is rewritten, it's also called for retrocausality, with a grand word, which is the true workings of the heavens and the skies. I think we hit the 1 hour mark here, a bit more. Yes, in the Wheeler-de Witt equation. You're still amazing here, Kalle. Thank you very much. The word original loses its sense. Instead, observation creates an original. Yes, exactly. It creates reality. You are the creator, which makes it objective and shareable by the rest of humanity. Why, thank you, Kalle. Fantastic. Once more, a marvel. And I will here end the recording. And you can linger on for a while here. Let's see if I can get you a voice.